First of all, for example, if you are working on a project, everybody shares their calendar. So if you're working on something, you see who else is working on similar things. So you combine resources, you combine money, you combine the budgets that you have, you combine personnel, you combine diversity of thought, and that creates a new thing. There's always value in getting startups. Just knowing which startup to choose, that by itself is a huge task. It's not a simple thing, because some of these things can cost a lot of money. Unless you know 100% is going to affect your strategic business plan, and you invest in it, and it might be success, might be a failure. So you need to be a master at choosing which startup to acquire and how they kind of impact. So there is that, there is this, and then there's the whole elements of that. So I think the culture itself, the way you do it, and actually, in a matter of fact, if you go and have an idea, it's so simple to get funding for it if you pitch it compared to other companies that I've seen. So you have an idea, and in 1 or 2 days you have funding, and you start working on it. Work on 20% of your time dedicated to work on that. I don't see many companies that can do these kind of things. So in addition to buying startups, which is a very important element, I think they do so many other things that make them successful. And also diversify. They're very diverse. They do work on so many different things. So if one business unit goes down, they have other ones that can balance things up. Talked about diversifying things. No, so that's the thing I try to struggle with the most, actually, with big corporations. It's especially government agencies. It's very difficult. So, like I said, in my cases, I try to do it in both ways. One time I forced projects and forced things, and the people started, seeing the value and embracing it, or just little by little try to give courses, give things, show the value from implementing certain tools in what they're doing. Open innovation, people are starting to see it more and more. The value from embracing open innovation, the value of brainstorming, how they solve problems, design thinking, how by doing that you create much better products. So it's just a matter of changing people's perspectives and mind. And even big corporations and government agencies, they'll have definitely embraced a lot of these kind of things. It might be a completely innovative environment like a startup, but you can make huge impacts and make a lot of progress. The thing is, people go to that mindset, well, 9 out of 10 fail. Well, why can't you be one of the ones that succeed, right? I mean, that's how I keep telling people. There's no reason to do that. I think the fundamental thing is having a solid team. If you have a solid team, you have a solid execution plan, you have a gap in the market that addresses something there's a need for. There's fundamental things. If you know what they're doing, the success rate will be very high. You don't have to fail as often, actually. Sometimes you have a problem with the team. You don't have the right team. Or you have team, for example, 5 engineers, when you can have probably an engineer, you can have a business development guy, you can have a legal person, you can have a business person. So diversify your team, make sure you have, don't have redundancies. You have a solid execution plan, you have validate your early assumptions early on. There are so many simple tools. If you do them, your success rate will go through the sky. No, that's absolutely an important point. If you're solving a problem that doesn't help, then you're wasting your time and resources and efforts. Forming think tanks helps a lot in these kind of things. Having people from that actually understand the markets from industry, understand academia, understand government, and have big groups together, brainstorm about what are going to be the main problems, the main issues affecting humanity in the near future. By having this is where you start the conversation. You start actually tailoring. So, okay, this is going to be 1, it's going to be 2. You can have economists, for example, there as well. So by doing that, you start having dividing them into, these are going to be in the next 5 years, it's going to be the issues in the next 10 years. And by the way, it doesn't mean that all of them will be truth or be right decisions. So you try to strategize as much as possible, and some of them will be actually exactly something you predicted. Some of them were completely unpredictable. But I think the key is to forming think tanks as diverse as possible, comprised of people from so many different industries with so many different backgrounds. And you'll be able to get good solutions to start working into. For innovation, and when I used to do that in NASA, obviously most of them were technical people. But when it comes to innovation, it doesn't have to be technical people at all. And actually, I'd rather have people that are not technical, because obviously you need to have some technical people, because you need to understand, to what level, what you need to do. But the people that actually would like to bounce ideas and have these discussions, I'd rather them not being technical people. I'd rather them being from different disciplines. So there is room for a lot of people. We have business, we have history, whatever. I mean, I'd love to work with that as diverse as possible. In the program we had, actually, the Space Studies program, we accepted somebody who's an artist. Yeah. And actually, I loved seeing what ideas he was coming with, because he completely out of the box compared to what we were doing. So that I personally love to do that. You know, artists, singers, engineers, scientists, business people, lawyers. You'll be shocked at how much different ideas you'll be able to get. Impressive. Not only that, age makes a difference. Culture, what country they're coming from. People from Asia, people from America, people from Europe. Completely different perspectives. So that's the thing. You know, if you form a team like this, you can think almost about so many different issues and problems you would never think about by having a homogeneous group of people. I see it actually very challenging. I see it very challenging because, like I said, there's a huge amount of population. And you tell me any job almost right now, I can potentially argue how that job could be replaced by artificial intelligence. How is the future economy looks like? You know, because if we have an economy where people don't have much role and we get to check at the end of the month, then us as humans, we need to feel productive. Otherwise, we'll have issues, psychological issues, right? We need to. That's how we get satisfaction, by feeling self-worth, that we're contributing and doing things. The problem, like I said, it's almost close to creating new species that are going to be competing with us. It's so substantially powerful. There's always going to be jobs that only humans can do. There's no question about that. But the problem is the vast amount of jobs that we have will be substantially impacted by this artificial intelligence system. So I think economists could look into that. You know, what kind of economies we have in the future, how does it impact psychologists, technologists, because there's amazing value from this technology, right? I mean, it can help us at so many different levels, but at the same time, how does it impact the job markets, and how can we tailor our academic institutions to create things that complement artificial intelligence, that only jobs that humans can do, and start capitalizing, changing the whole educational system sometimes into these kind of fields. So innovation is creating some amazing things that helps humanity substantially, right? But there's the other things you're talking about is more politics, politician, and things like that. That's, I think, beyond the realm of what we're talking about. But innovation, I believe, it's been tremendously impactful to all of humanity in so many different levels, in economics, in technology, in medicine, and education even. I think right now, when I was in college a long time ago, for example, we're reading a biology book, and it's difficult to understand what's going on. Now kids can go and pull up YouTube and understand things, see things in three-dimensional, understand and get more explanation. So innovation is impacting all of us. A kid in a poor village in Africa could essentially read them, or actually go through a movie, a documentary about something, learn from it. So it is impactful, right? We're creating new technologies to filter the water in poor communities and prevent diseases. All these things, I think, they are innovation, contributing to improving humanity on Earth. The other things are political things, depend on the politicians at the time and the region. For example, in the medical field, I have, it's funny, I'm an engineer, but most of my friends are medical doctors for some reason. So we keep arguing. If you're a medical doctor, for example, a primary care physician, I come to you and I tell you, for example, what's wrong with me. You base it on what you studied, what education, some experience, and maybe you make a diagnosis. Maybe it's successful, maybe it's not. You don't have time. You see like 20 patients or 50 patients per day, fast. Now imagine if I go to a system that can actually has in its capability have read every single research paper ever published in medicine, has every single medical book ever published, has every medical file from hospitals in place. And then can take a look at your expressions, can look at your temperatures, can get a drop of blood and do millions of tests in microseconds. How do you compete with that? I mean, there is no way in hell a human can compete with that system eventually. So what does that mean for for jobs, for doctors, engineers? When you're trying to design something, instead of going to the books and trying to equations and solve them, everything is available. Tell them, I want to design this. In a few seconds, you'll have a design. Pilots, drivers, accountants, lawyers. How do you compete with a lawyer, for example, that a human that looks like a robot, robot that looks like a human, and has studied every single case in history, in Supreme Court records, every single book. And on top of that, he has studied every single psychological elements. He studied psychology, philosophy, and he has the capability of billions of people in the mind. So how does a lawyer can argue a case versus a robonaut like this, for example? So if you can tell me any job, I can tell you an argument how it could be replaced by that. But I'm sure there will be cases where we'll never be able to replace it by artificial intelligence. There will always be humans. What are these, what are not? It's difficult to tell at this time, but that's where all of us can come in and determine what this future might look like. Right now, it's not a competition. Right now, we're trying to create these things to help us, make our lives better. But eventually, it might be something different. And who's going to control that? What are the regulations? Who's doing that? And then, I think the game-changing capability will be when these artificial intelligence can alter their own code without human intervention and create your own thing. That's when you're creating a completely different story. And that's where things become really weird. And we don't understand what's going to happen then.